welcome to today's webinar. Thanks to Cape Higher Education Consortium, or CHEC, for this great collaboration. For those who don't know, CHEC represents 4 regional universities: CPUT, UCT, Stellenbosch, and UWC. It's been a fantastic collaboration and a great way to connect both business and academia. I trust you all still keeping well, healthy, and safe. It's very clear from indications coming out of Australia and the US and some other parts of the world that this pandemic is going to be with us for a while. We're seeing the second wave of infections and the resurgence in infection rates, which is quite concerning. But nevertheless, we have a great discussion ahead of us today. It's quite a full program, so we're going to try and move it along quite quickly. So I think we all have realized that this pandemic, and along with the fourth industrial revolution, stimulating the development of new production techniques, business models that will fundamentally transform global economies. We've also seen large-scale disruption of traditional academic programs and feeder systems into industry. And bearing in mind that there were already concerns before the COVID-19 pandemic around the ability of traditional university programs keeping pace with rapid developments in business and I suppose in society at large. The importance of universities being in sync with business to produce the right kind of talent has arguably never been greater. The Dual Higher Education Project provides a fantastic opportunity for tertiary education institutions and business to develop a closer collaboration and deal with this issue and start achieving the goal of a better collaboration and stronger sync between business and academia. So the first conversation between business and academia took place on the 12th of March, hosted at the fantastic greenhouse facility at Deloitte. I think many of you were there and would remember that session. And that engagement focused really on introducing the concept of dual higher education as an alternate model of tertiary education in South Africa, and to stimulate the business to university collaboration required to effectively implement DHE. We shot a great little video at that session, and rather than listening to me ramble on all morning about it, I thought we'll give you an opportunity to see the video. It's 4 minutes, so please bear with me, and we can then pick up the conversation from there. So let me just get that up for you.
The world is changing very rapidly, and we need far more interaction between higher education and business in terms of what kind of knowledge, what kind of skills and competencies do graduates need to be successful. So the idea of promoting far greater interaction and collaboration between universities and business in terms of what goes into the curriculum, what are the important skills that graduates need to be successful in the world of work is really important.
I think it's important that business and universities collaborate in order to ensure that future employees are fit for purpose. So you have two very different worlds. You have the academic world and you have where people are actually going to end up working. And those two interact in very different manners.
Our biggest challenges are obviously the small talent pool that is available with respect to the critical skills that we are looking for from an experienced hire point of view. Experienced hires being any employee from a point of view of 3 years and upwards with respect to the skill set that they hold coming into an organization.
I think the majority of South African students are generally underprepared. And so they're underprepared to go to university and underprepared to study at university, but more so underprepared once they get to the industry. Education and educational institutions has a moral, firstly, and then an economic responsibility to ensure that the proper training is provided, one, and secondly, also to teach them and to walk with them the path in terms of that preparation. It's not just a once-off thing. I think the preparation has to be introduced right at the beginning.
I think from my organization's perspective is that our biggest challenge is that grads coming in are book smart. They know the theory, but they struggle to integrate into the working world, and resilience is a big concern for us. And resilience encompasses everything: the ability to be able to take a step back and answer a question, ask a question, knowing when to say I don't know things, asking for help, and just navigating within a social context. That, I believe, is our biggest challenge. They know the technical stuff, They just don't know how to put those building bricks together and deliver on a product.
The key highlight for me from this event is the possibility that the dual education model provides to solve for socio-economic issues. When you think about the students that are in the current University of Technology and the opportunities, the limited opportunities that they have to actually get employment for practical purposes, it is quite a serious one when you look at the larger institutions like the Durban University of Technology. Most of the time for those students, the families are sacrificing a lot to pay for the tuition, and when the student doesn't actually get the required workplace experience, what it does is that it delays the actual finishing of the course and puts more pressure on the family, and actually it means that that student cannot give back to the family and support and become the breadwinner. And I think this model for me would solve a lot of that.
I was very impressed with this morning's meeting. I felt that there was a large amount of consensus and a meeting of the minds between people from universities and business that we should work together, and that the benefits of working together are far greater than carrying on with a situation that we in many cases still have currently, where universities and the business community really operate separately from each other.
In today's webinar, we really want to achieve a few things which are important, and I think we want to push towards that today. Firstly, we want to do just a quick recap of content from that previous session, and then get a student perspective from a recent participant in this model, which we thought would be quite interesting. Provide some feedback on the project and the way forward. The project, as you will hear, has now been fully funded and is ready to go and kicking off. So it's a very exciting time. And then I think most importantly for me is to strengthen the working relationship between interested companies and the DHE project team. I think as business, if we hope to help universities produce better talent and the kind of talent that we need, then we need to be part of that process to design that system. And that's what this project is all about. So on that note, let's make it as interactive as possible. Please use the chat and the Q&A. If there's anything you are uncertain about, please do drop a question in the Q&A. I'll monitor that throughout the session, and we'll revisit that if there's time at the end, or take it up with you after the fact. The session will be recorded, as mentioned. It's available on YouTube. As always, please feel free to share your thoughts. And please indicate if you would like us to set up a one-on-one between your company and the DHE project team. I mean, I'm sure they'll share their contact details, but we're happy to facilitate any interaction that you may want to pursue as well. Okay, so moving very swiftly along. First up today, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Chris Mhlapo. Chris is the Vice Chancellor and Principal at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Prof. Mhlapo holds a BSc in Chemistry and Mathematics, BSc Honours and an MSc in Chemistry from the University of Limpopo, and a PhD in Chemistry from the University of the Northwest. He has undertaken numerous postdoctorate training sessions in subject-specific fields, as well as in research management and technology transfer. Prof. Mhlapo continues to participate in the international and national discourse with regard to the economic competitiveness of South Africa versus the developmental state, technology transfer and innovation in comparison with other OECD countries. Welcome, Chris, and good morning.
Good morning to you, Ryan. Good morning. And good morning to you, colleagues. Let me share my slides with you. Good morning to you all, colleagues, and thank you very much for inviting me for this webinar. It is a great honor and privilege. I was actually moved as a led institution by the invitation, because my relationship with Cape High Education Consortium, as well as Cape Town, comes a long way. And I'm actually happy that now we have taken this initiative and we are moving forward. I remember way back in 2009, there was a similar discussion with the German academic delegation under that came around. And I remember we even had a memorandum with University of Aachen And 2017, the same discussion as well around the benefits of the dual education system vis-a-vis our cooperative education as universities of technology or work integrated learning as well. And of course, there has been as well a number of missions under GIZ, whether here in Cape Town or while I was still with the Department of Science and Technology in Pretoria, where we went to Germany to really look at the standby system, where it's more around the technology transfer. And I remember I was based at University of Esslingen. And having said that, I'm encouraged that the discussions is actually taking place. And perhaps this crisis, this good crisis that we're actually having, will help us to move forward in terms of ensuring that now we come up with a model that is going to ensure that now the unemployment of our youth, as well as our graduates, is lessened. Program Director, this is my first slide, the view from my office overlooking the majestic Table Mountain. And of course, I will be failing in my duty if I don't thank Cape Higher Education to be part and parcel of this proposal, because that feeds into the collaboration protocol that we have signed some years ago, that we wanted Western Cape as a strong higher education region through systemic interinstitutional cooperation and academic program collaboration. This is exactly what is actually happening here, that collaboration protocols are there, and I think we have achieved so much as a region. So that's why when my institution was requested, I said, this is actually what CHEC stands for. This is, of course, now what we can achieve as a region to ensure that we create a pipeline and, of course, stimulate regional economic development. And of course, we also said we have to be sensitive around historical realities and equity across institution and cost effectiveness. Those were some of the things that we agreed on as a region. And of course, I remember as well in 2013, through CHEC, I was still a chairperson of CHEC at the time, that we published this pathway from university to work, which we used to call the graduation destination survey. And the results were very telling, because they were actually saying that even us as University of Technologies, we used to think that due to workplace learning or the placement learning or cooperative education that we're actually having, we were thinking that now our graduates are supposed to be easily employed than the traditional institutions. But the results are there and they speak for themselves. That's why I'm saying that this particular model definitely is going to propel us in the direction where we can actually say, perhaps when we implement it appropriately, we'll actually ensure that now our students, our graduates, hit the ground running on the factory floor, and of course, they can actually be employed immediately. So I was actually happy as a Vice Chancellor and Principal on the 23rd of February this year to put pen on paper and actually sign that proposal. And I even phoned the DG of Higher Education to say the conceptualization of this model as well as the proposal is very strong. And as an institution, we are excited to align ourselves with it, because we have to do something about the whole question of skills development in the country. We have to rethink the curriculum model that we're actually having. And of course, as an institution, we said, we actually commit ourselves to speedy service and good governance in terms of the resources allocated for this particular project, that at all times, we'll actually ensure that now we give quick service, and of course, we respond accordingly. And that's why we have ensured that we put senior management team to this particular project. In fact, my DVC teaching and learning, Professor Rishi Bakran, will actually be the person who's going to be in charge of this particular project, because is actually going to inform our curriculum. And I've read the proposal, and it's very interesting because it actually talks about this particular model. And what is actually important for me is to answer this particular question as to what is German dual education system and why other countries want it, because a number of countries are interested in this particular model. And I know that even in Asia, there are institutions that have copied this particular model. And of course, they are saying this is the model that actually buttresses the economic development of the country. And of course, you can always learn from the best. And I welcome the exploration of this innovative initiative because at an institution, we already have pockets, as I've mentioned earlier, of cooperative education, will service learning, workplace-based learning, etc. And maybe this is the right time of having this, particularly following the amalgamation of the Department of Higher Education and Training, because now, as well as the Department of Science and Innovation, because you are actually bringing the two together. And of course, we have to take advantage of the integration of these two departments, because there's been so much in common, the innovation aspect as well as the research output used to be funded by the Department of Higher Education and Training. So it's very important that we take advantage of that particular measure for our own benefit, for our own rethinking of the curriculum model, to say maybe the time is now that there have been a number of attempts in the past, but maybe the time is now to say, let's actually take the results from a number of Erasmus Plus or Erasmus Mundus programs that is focused on this particular model and implement them. And of course, also learn what are the pitfalls from people who have been having this particular model for quite some time. As I've mentioned earlier, that we have had a number of engagement and even visit. I remember the University of Karlsruhe, which is University of Cooperative Education. There, the results as well speak for themselves in terms of the graduate readiness for the job market, and of the combination of theory and practice. And of course, how companies are actually lining for this type of graduates, particularly in countries like ours. It's very important that we ensure that we revisit this model. And of course, you look at students being abreast with emerging technologies as well as OIR before they even actually reach the effective floor. And of course, as my institution, because you talk about that slogan of creating futures, perhaps is actually the way of creating future as an institution, particularly being a University of Technology. And of course, this slide is actually well known that normally you wanted to produce a well-rounded graduate, but those aspects of technical knowledge, theory and practice, as well as social skills are very, very important, including the methodology that will actually produce a graduate that is actually ready for the world of work, because otherwise we'll always talk about this mismatch. So as an institution, we are excited and we are part and parcel of this. And I can assure you that we are going to ensure that as an institution, we play our role and become one of the key drivers of this wonderful initiative as a lead institution. And the applicability to the higher education sector of this dual higher education model, I'm aware that there is actually an intent of the creation of a specific curricular model as applied to higher education, and we are saying we are for that. And of course, the industry responsibility for the program, we have been talking about that sinking industrial initiatives, and of course, thanks to Australia Cape Town for being the matchmaker. And I think this export hit from Germany and other countries that have walked this particular road will actually assist us to move forward. And of course, it's also addressing the recently released National Skill Development Plan 2030. And I think it's coming at the right time. And I think that I will be looking forward to the researchers on the ground, the researchers from CPUT, who are steeped in will to ensure that they advise our government, as we have done in the past, that there are so many initiatives as the intellectual hub of South Africa, being the Western Cape, like the graduate destination survey. We started small, but it was taken nationally by USAF. And I think this is one that you can actually also start, and of course, ensure that ultimately, this is actually embraced by all the partners, and ultimately is embraced by South Africa, because the time is now that we have to embrace the fourth industrial revolution, as well as producing graduates that are ready for the world of work. Program Director, I will be failing in my duty if I don't thank you as the CEO of Facility Cape Town and your team for always wanting to bridge this chasm between us as well as the business world. And of course, the Cape High Education Consortium, this is your mandate. And of course, we are fully behind you as the four mighty institutions in the region. And then of course, the German partners, especially Professor Joseph Grossman. I've actually looked at the video from the last session. And of course, we are looking forward to learn more, as well as the pitfall about implementing this particular model. The Department of Higher Education and Training, with the resources, the whooping 10 million plus, we are actually looking forward to ensure that now we spend the money accordingly, but we produce the results that are commensurate with the investment. And of course, all the industry partners here, I've seen all of them on the screen. We wanted to thank you. We are in this together, and all of us must put shoulder to the wheel to ensure that we reduce unemployment, to ensure that the national and the regional system of innovation is functional and vibrant. And that can only function if the regional system is actually well and good, and if there is actually that synergy between industry, universities, as well as the civil society. Program Director, I want to thank you, but in the tradition of my institution, when I conclude a presentation, I will be accused if I don't actually use this three language. We normally say thank you, and we don't stop there because we know that we'll be excluding a large number of our people. And we say again, baie dankie dames en here. But we don't end there because we know that we will not have completed all the stakeholders of CPUT, but we finally say, thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hlapo. For those fantastic words of support and for a great introduction. I think it is incredibly encouraging to have the full support and buy-in of the most senior academic leadership in the region, and I think that bodes extremely well for the success of the project. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so moving very swiftly along, I'm cognizant of time this morning, so I hope you will excuse us if we run a few minutes over, but it's great content. And so coming up next, we have Professor Dr. Joseph Kocheman, who is an Associate Professor for Marketing and Technology Management at the Osnabrück University of Applied Sciences in Germany, and an extraordinary professor at the Department of Industrial Engineering at Tshwane University of Technology down here in South Africa. I think Prof. Kocheman needs very little introduction for those who were at the previous session. So welcome again, Joseph, and thank you very much. He has 20 years experience in high technology and product development and is also Managing Director of several R&D institutions and technology-based SMEs. Prof. Kocheman is well-versed in the dual higher education model, which was first introduced at Baden-Württemberg Cooperative State University, the first higher education institute in Germany to integrate academic studies with workplace training. And joining Joseph today is Medea Milenkovic, who is a current student. On that note, good morning, Joseph. Thank you very much for joining us again, and over to you.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, good morning, everybody. I was asked to give a short overview and to summarize all the major aspects and characteristics of a dual study system in Germany. I hope a lot of you have been part of the workshop in March, where we discussed it first, but let me summarize it in a short way. So let's start with a view back and describing that we have two levels of dual education system in Germany. The old one is for more than 100 years, with 100 years experience, is a dual education and vocational training. That's on the level of apprentices, mostly artisans or commercial jobs in offices, and so that's not on a university level. So there is a lot of experience in that field. And just to differ it from the dual higher education model, these apprentices level and these artisans level are focused in a project by the GIZ, the German International Development Company. And they are working together with the TVET colleges, because one of the questions was, what is the relation to the TVET colleges? These artisans and these plumber and electricians in this program are educated in the TVET colleges. So it's a pilot project, and it runs in the Gauteng area and in the Eastern Cape as well. So let's focus on the dual higher education approach in a whole. So we have the main difference is that we are talking about two learning locations, two learning places. It's not only the university where students learn things, but they are also learning it in the practical work in the industry partners. So we have theoretical knowledge taught at universities, and the transfer into practice and practical application work will happen in the companies. So the students I mentioned before are not cheap labor. The practical phase is part of their study program. That works, in our case, it works like this model. So we have different models in Germany, but that's the main model. So we have a university phase. In my university, it's 10 weeks. And we have a company phase. It's 12 to 14 weeks. And there's a transfer and an exchange and a reflecting phase between these two phases. So, for example, the students are taught in some modules like mathematics, marketing, accounting, and so on, and HRM. And when they change the learning place to the company, they have to identify what they have learned in these courses here at university in a practical aspect in the companies. So they are looking whether the theoretical learnings fits with the practical world, and it's a reflecting phase in both directions. In the practical phase as well, the students pass through different departments inside the company just to learn the different kind of works, the different professions which exist in a company. So the main aspect is that we have an exchange between university and the company in two ways. So we have first the pass from the knowledge to ability. So the students taught current theoretical knowledge, then they reflect it in the practical phase, and then they reflect it and bring it back through the path from experience to knowledge into the university. So we are also discussing with the people from industry, because the companies name their professional needs. And we try to fit also our programs to the needs of the industry. So that's a circle, and it's an exchange between both partners. And the result of that is that we are producing students who are able not only to work with theoretical technical skills, they can also assess the application of the knowledge. They know how to transfer it in practical production, practical office work, or whatever. So, and that one of the main aspects, our students know how to apply this knowledge specifically to practical processes in order to generate benefits for the company. So the students are one instrument to generate additional benefits for the company by high educated students. So that's our idea, that's our approach. The benefits for the company are listed before, are listed in here. So there's a lot of benefits you can use to position yourself in the market, to get more offers and so on. The question is, what is the benefits for the students? And that I can't answer because I'm the professor. I asked one of my students, Medea, she is a third-year student in industrial engineering, to give you some ideas about their experience and her reasons to study in a dual way. So I don't know where Medea is. Medea, can you switch on your camera? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here I am.
Medea, please. It's your stage.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Gochaman. Hello, I'm Medea Milenkovic. I'm from Cologne in Germany, a quite big city. And I'm since 2018, I'm a dual student at the university in Lingen, where Professor Joseph Gochaman also teaches. And I also work for a German gas grid operator, which is called Westnetz. That gave me the opportunity to participate in the dual study program. And back in the day when I decided what I want to do, I chose to be part of a dual study program because of the practical insight of how a business works, and maybe also what kind of job I want to pursue in the future. And as Mr. Gochaman said, there are different models, and I specifically decided for that model where you are in the theoretical phase for 3 months, and then in the practical phase for another 3 months, and so on, because I think you can really concentrate on one matter at a time. And yeah, versus, for example, taking evening classes or weekend classes where you're kind of in between both. And I find myself directly applying learned subjects that I learned in the university to the company, and the other way around, also understanding subjects in class better because I have the background of the company. And that leads to really internalizing both contents. Of course, there is a double load because, for example, we also have to write homework assignments while we're in the company. Or, for example, when you're in university, there might be some work-related projects that you have to follow up on at the same time. But that's just the best practice for time and stress management. And also, I really learned how to organize myself better. Compared to normal students, they do have more free time and long semester breaks, at least in Germany. And for me, it is really worth it though, because I have a financial support and I'm on a path to a full-time job, hopefully at my company, and I do gain practical knowledge along the way. And normal students can't really gain that easily. And in general, my fellow students and I, we really identify with our company, and for us it's a goal to stay and work at the company in the end. So there are options for the companies to include an obligatory 1 or 2 year contract in the beginning of the program to bind the students. And for me, there's also an advantage because I don't have to worry about not having a job after graduating. And just in general, everybody that is choosing the dual study program, in my opinion, they're the hardworking and ambitious people. So in the end, companies are really adding a value to their workforce. And if I had to decide how to study over again, I think I would definitely still choose the dual study program because it has many benefits and I really like it. Yeah, if you have more questions, you can later definitely ask me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Medea. And we'll come back to your offer to answer some questions. I just have some questions integrated in the following slide. So, now, I was asked also to answer some open questions from the March session on dual higher education. I just want to focus on some main aspects. I guess you can get the slides after this to receive it so that you can look on. So I try to structurize it in some blocks. So one question or some questions you entered last time in your tablets when the session was running was how popular the dual system was compared to the full academic program. So at least the number of dual students in Germany, a small number. Okay, there are much more than 100,000 dual students now, but compared to the 2.9 million students in Germany, and that's also students at universities, not at schools, so it's the university students. It's still a small number, but it's strongly increasing. So most students study at academic universities and at universities of applied sciences, as my university is. So we have some other universities for music and art and something else, but that's a huge amount of students studying at the University of Applied Science. And in case of that, most of the dual study programs are offered by universities of applied science because they have already a close cooperation with industry. So most of the really academic universities, and I studied physics and astronomy, and so that's far away from the market, yeah, they are not such involved in these. You can see it here, the Universitäten, 7%, that's the academic universities. Only a small number cooperation with the academic universities, but mainly with the universities of applied science. We have about 1,500 dual courses of study in Germany, offered by more than 200 universities and academies. We have some academies here, the Berufsacademies, who are offering only dual study programs. Most of the other universities are. So there's no limit. So we have enough places, enough study places for all the students. And the number of dual students are increasing strongly. For example, in my institute, we now have 1,000 students studying in the 3-year courses. Some years ago, it was only about 200, 250. So it was more than 4 times some years ago. The question is, how important is the basic schooling standards? What are the admission requirements? The bachelor and master degrees in dual studies are at the same level as at all other universities. So the study programs are full academic and full accredited study programs. We are following the same accreditation rules and all the other study programs as well. However, the focus is more on the application of knowledge than on theory. We do talk about theory, but it's not in the center. The dual study program is not a study light. The simultaneous learning of theory and practice, as Medea mentioned before, is challenging. And it demands full commitment, so our students are really engaged. They're really engaged, and so they need a good basic schooling standard, of course. The admission requirement, therefore, usually is the Abitur. The Abitur is comparable to metric that NQF4 in South Africa. But we also have other admission rules to enter this study without this metric coming from a job or being experienced for a long time. The students, as I mentioned in March, are selected by the companies. So the companies choose the good students and send them to university. Of course, the university merely checks the admission requirements. It's not a part-time workforce. The learning phase in the industry is part of the study. Yeah, the work in the company is also a vocational training, but it's the second learning place. So the education, it's a change of historical perspective, as one of you mentioned in the questions. Instead of providing international companies with cheap labor, as you have done in the past in South Africa, for BMW and all the big players, now the education system must provide qualified labor for South African companies. That's the approach, to teach young people theoretical and practical skills to generate benefit in the South African companies. Okay, what's about the money? Okay, so in Germany, the students are employed and paid by the company, either as apprentices or as trainees. So we must define a specific South African financing approach in this project. It is one of the challenges we have to find, because I know that for some of the companies, or for most of the companies, especially now in the Corona crisis phase, money is it's a huge argument. But I'm sure we can solve this problem. You must look on the cost-benefit ratio. Companies that employ a qualified academic workforce can position themselves better in the market and acquire better orders due to higher qualification. And that's one problem we identified as well. Some of the small companies just have to learn how to use these good qualified workforces. Okay, strong commitment of the students. We already heard from Medea. Perhaps, Medea, you can say two sentences to the living place. Somebody is asking how are the students living when they change the place. Sometimes the companies are far away and they have to come to the university for some 100 kilometers or so. So they are living in Lingen, and perhaps, Medea, you can add some two sentences to this aspect.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I am from Cologne, which is a big city about 2 hours south from here. And I moved here because of this program. And for me, it was also the question, how do I live? Where do I live? And I learned that you can, so my company, for example, is in Osnabrück, which is 1.5 hours from Lingen, where my university is. And what people do is they live in Osnabrück, but they also part-time live in Lingen while they are studying. And there is a thing between students where you can share one apartment, and there are different phases. So while I'm at university, my partner could be at work, and then they swap. So there they save money. For me though, I just wanted to stay in one place, so I chose a city between my company and the university. But yeah, most people do live near the campus in Lingen while they study, because when you study, you don't have that much time, and so that you're close to the university. Yeah.
And our experience is, as a university, we don't have to care about the apartments. An independent housing agency system is developed between the students. Yeah. They're organizing it by themselves. That's one of the learning effects as well. Yeah? To organize their life and to organize also the study phase. Okay, that's my input for today. I hope could answer some of these questions. If you have any more questions, do not hesitate to ask us in the chat or afterwards. I'm available. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Joseph and Medea. Very, very insightful. Let's move along very quickly. Our next speaker, and I'm really pleased to finally get to introduce the project director of the Dual Higher Education Project. Antoinette, unfortunately, wasn't able to join us at the first session. So really, really great to introduce Dr. Antoinette Smith-Tolkien. Antoinette is a research fellow at the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at Stellenbosch University. And as I mentioned, she's the project director of the Dual Higher Education Project. She holds a Master of Philosophy degree in Sociology and a PhD in Education and Curriculum Studies from Stellenbosch University. Her fields of expertise include higher education curriculum studies and design, experiential learning pedagogies, sociology of development, and constructivist interpretive research methodologies. Goodness, Antoinette, that's quite a mouthful. She has presented at conferences in South Africa, Australia, Europe, China, North and South America over the last 15 years, co-chaired 5 international symposia and a national colloquium. Research record reflects several national and international publications in accredited journals and books. Welcome, Antoinette. Good morning. And Antoinette is joined this morning by Estienne Berens, who's a key part of the DHE project team as well. Good morning. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Ryan. It's very nice to be here. And you know, as you know, my task this morning is to tell you more about the Dual Higher Education Project. And I was just thinking, you know, I don't have much to say now because everyone has spoken about the dual studies. But what I will endeavor to do is to perhaps also refer to some of the questions you've asked at the previous workshop. And I'm going to just try and give a very brief overview and tell you, you know, from a South African perspective, why are we embarking on this project? What is dual higher education for us? How we see it now? And then perhaps also, you know, who is part of it very briefly, but I think more also how will we go about. So I'm going to also share my screen with you so that you can follow, you know, what I am saying. So I think you've heard so much, even from a South African perspective, to a certain degree, but I think it will be important for us to just look at, you know, why did we start this project, and where are we now with the project at this point in time. So I think the first question that I want to try and answer is why the project, and of course you know, where we are at now. So let me start by saying that the project has 2 main foci. Firstly, I think you've heard that we will explore different models of dual higher education and find one specifically conducive to the South African higher education environment. And then when we do that, we will also implement a pilot in the different types of universities to test the model that we have developed. So I think the uncertainty at the moment is, so are we going to also include TVET colleges? Are we going to look right across higher education institutions? The answer is no, we are not going to include TVET colleges because we want to specifically focus on academic programs within higher education institutions or universities. And then, of course, all the types of universities that we do have in South Africa. We started the project planning last year in around February. And as you've heard from Professor Klapu, he only signed off on the project very recently in February. I am though glad to say that, you know, the DHET, Department of Higher Education and Training, has awarded us funding to do the project. And we have actually received the confirmation that indeed the money has been paid in at CPUT. So Professor Klapu, that is also just a very good news that I heard yesterday. So further to the why of the project. In South Africa, we are all worried, and you would have heard on the video that we are really concerned about the youth employment in South Africa. And according to studies done on the topic of youth and graduate employment, it was found that young people find it harder to find a job for many reasons. Apart from other reasons I mentioned here on the slide, we find that graduates simply are not ready for the world of work and find that experience is one of the main requirements to find a job. In many cases, their degree program often gives them the required knowledge, but not the skills and the competencies required for the world of work. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We recognize that in work integrated learning and service learning and all the other pedagogies that engage in industry and other organizations have started a process in South Africa to prepare students better for the world of work. But I think at this point, this particular model really gives us a much larger possibilities of doing that. So one of the points that I'm mentioning here is the one about the fourth industrial revolution. And with regards to that, the World Economic Forum report of 2018 stated that some jobs will cease to exist during this new era, but there are more opportunities for innovation and new jobs are flourishing. However, reskilling and upskilling need to be proactive and is currently not keeping up with the changes in workforce demand. The report also stresses the importance that all concerned stakeholders, and I quote, should instigate reform in education and training systems. And this is why we feel that this project is innovative and that we are really at the moment embarking on pioneering work. So sorry, I just want to, yeah. The first thing that I want to mention about, what is the dual education, or what is dual higher education? I think the first thing to emphasize is that it is a curriculum model in its own right. And secondly, that it is based on a collaborative relationship between the university and the companies. And we've heard a lot about this morning. I think what we see happening in South Africa is that there will be a very distinct role of the university and the company to provide a combination of the theory and practice. But in South Africa, it will be on a larger scale than in any other model currently. So just to say a little bit about how we see the different orientations between the universities, the universities and the companies. As we all know, universities ground any discipline in theory and develop the students' understanding of the discipline through theory and concepts. And we refer to that as conceptual knowledge. And it might consist of theoretical knowledge as well as procedural knowledge, such as formulas, rules and principles, and belonging to a certain particular body of knowledge. But I think what we've also heard is that students also need to learn how to apply that knowledge to practical real life situations. And that is where we see that the industry have played a decisive role in offering students the opportunity to understand the contextual domain. Up till now in our work integrated learning and specifically the workplace-based learning, we have seen that. And they offering the students the opportunity to understand the contextual domain. And actually what that means is where and how the knowledge is used. Students learn how to apply the procedural knowledge and how knowledge is used in practice. And what we also find is that is how students then develop the skills. And I think Joseph referred to it as abilities, but also competencies. And competencies also include soft skills. That is something that is very important in the world of work. I think when we look at this model, It ticks off all the boxes of curriculum transformation. It supports employability. It affords students experiences, and that enhances their academic learning, their levels of thinking, their leadership skills, and working with others. In the next slide, I will elaborate a little bit more on the distinct roles of the industry and the university, and I will specifically focus on the South African situation and how we see this happening with our system. So I think what will happen is that the university will need to customize their curriculum to include a substantial workplace-based learning. And although university remains the custodian of the program, the university has to prepare the students how to learn in the practical situation. Of course, the universities need to work in close collaboration with the industry to supervise the student and communicate which activities are conducive to achieving the requirements. What we see happening in the South African environment is that there will be variation in the credit weighting in the two learning components, but we are at this point aiming for an average credit weighting of 2/3 theory and 1/3 practical work. And I think that also tells you why I said that it will be definitely a larger component in industry that is currently practiced in South Africa. So on the industry side, we find that the students bring new knowledge to the industry, and I think Joseph has also alluded to that. And then industry will then have the benefit of having the university's knowledge on new developments in a particular field to their disposal. So the main purpose of the student placement is to develop their talent as future employees. But it is important that the company is aware of the accreditation requirements, especially in South Africa, and as well as the activities that the students need for the fulfillment of their academic requirements. So what we have found up till now is if companies favors buying in talent rather instead of developing talent in their particular companies, this project might not be, and this type of model might not be a good fit for them. But however, we have found that industry is keen to invest in students as future employees in their sector. And I want to invite all the companies that are present that we would love to hear from you. If you are interested in participating in the project, and at the end of the presentation, we will tell you, you know, how to get involved and what you can do to participate. So taking then further into say, you know, how do our students feel, and this is mainly based on workplace-based learning. We find that students say that, you know, the workplace is often a foreign place and very overwhelming for them. They often feel that they are not adequately prepared for the workplace, and that is why there should really be a fit between the company and the study field of the student, as well as their career interests. That affords the students the opportunity to apply both the procedural and practical knowledge in their field of study while they are working in the company. And like Joseph has also indicated, there will definitely be reflection on the knowledge they learned in class as well as the knowledge they learned in the company. If a student finds their feet in a particular company, I think in South Africa as well, the chances are good that they will aspire to work at that particular company after completing their studies. Some of the lessons that we have learned in workplace-based learning is that the more structured the workplace orientate and integrate the student into the company activities, the better their performance. Understanding the company and its different sections is important for the student, but also being part of a particular team helps the students to feel more secure. They normally need a lot of coaching in soft skills like communication, relationship building, the policies of the company, understanding change, and of course its implications in the work environment. Then very briefly, I'm going to just allude to the stakeholders that we have. I want to say that the Czech team are mostly staff, but it also includes our German partners, represented by Professor Joseph Kocheman. But on the other hand, I think our main stakeholders will definitely be the universities and our graduate employers in the industry, and then of course government and other organizations. Our intention is not to reinvent existing wheels, so we are learning from the work of the LATFER project. This particular project was done at 16 universities in Africa and Europe, and the engineering project on teaching. And then, of course, otherwise also the YES and the A21, which is one of the programs that is offered in the TVET colleges. The German model of dual studies and the existing knowledge of work-integrated learning models in South Africa would be one of the things that we will definitely build on. And then I also want to mention that we will have some people who are experts and in business networks or parallel projects that we will also have contact with, and they will also be interested in what we are doing. And we refer to those people as the reference group. So even if you are not participating, we would really like to hear from you, and we would like to have your input. So what are we going to do, and how will the project be structured? So to start with, and I must say that, because not much is written and documented about dual higher education, we will need to do a lot of research, and especially this year, we will focus on that. And we will be looking at existing models of dual studies, but also we will spend a lot of time looking at research, around the readiness of universities. What are we currently doing in universities, and how can we build on that? But we will also look at our industries, on what are they doing, whom of the students or who of the industries have participated in this type of dual studies. And we will make sure that we do not reinvent wheels when we go forward with the project. Then, of course, our other feature will be that we will develop the dual higher education models, and that will happen on the basis of our research. We will determine what the South African model will look like and set the parameters for such a model. For instance, how would it differ, or will it be similar to the European model? And what other forms of dual studies under development are there under development in South Africa? For instance, the A21 initiative. Then a very important part of our work will be about policy restructuring. We have just received the new policy on workplace-based learning from the Department of Higher Education and Training, and we will need to look at how these current policies should be adapted to sanction the approval and the accreditation and the funding of the model. And then, of course, we will be assisting government, with the changes. But I think the other point that we would also touch on in policy restructuring is we would like to determine how quality assurance will be done And I think all of you know that in South Africa, that is quite a big issue. So in terms then of capacity building, once the environment is ready to accommodate this model of dual higher education, we will develop a training program for both industry and universities, while specifically assisting universities to restructure their programs, their participating programs, and their curricula. We might also use some of the existing training content from Germany, as well as the LATFO project, because we have heard very good things that they have specifically done that. So the implementation will be done over 3 years, from 2022 to 2024. And there might be more interest in the pilot than the existing 4 universities. I can just say that one university that is not in the Western Cape has already indicated and expressed their interest to participate. And I believe that there will be many more universities. Then finally, the evaluation throughout and after the completion is a must for any project to determine the successes and the failures, as well as to evaluate the applicability of the model for the South African higher education. What is important here is to assess the articulation between our different educational sub-frameworks, and we have a few of those, the different curricular structures in our different higher education institutional types. And then, of course, you know, we will in that, what we are doing, we will probably have a broader impact on how students across the board are prepared for the world of work. So as you can see, we really intend not to do this project in isolation, but to integrate it also with what is already happening in South Africa. So in summary, the project has a preparation, a pre-pilot and a pilot phase, with, of course, the evaluation part cross-cutting all phases. Then just also finally, the project progression. What I have tried to indicate is that there will be different processes happening across the project all the time. And we have set up 7 work packages and to cover sort of the 4 dimensions that we see in the project. So once we've understood what the existing models are and so on, we will develop the supportive modalities, and we will also do the policy structuring, and then of course we are going to do the stakeholder development from the beginning, and then eventually we will start with the pilot implementation. But what will happen is that, you know, while we are doing research, we will be working with stakeholders. While we are developing the models, we will work with the universities and the industry. And then and this will culminate to the pilot implementation. So I think all the things that I've said this morning gives you a good overview of what this project is about. So colleagues, as we promised, Estienne Behrens, which is our stakeholder relations coordinator, will briefly tell you about our information hub and how you may express your interest in participation. So I greet you, as Professor Klaper said, with a thank you, baie dankie, enkosi kakhulu, and dankeschön.
Thank you, Antoinette. We thought it well to create a one-stop information hub for our project so that all our stakeholders can go there, find information about the project, and of course, as the project progresses, to get more information about reports that we publish, frequently asked questions, that we have answers for. And it's ever evolving. So as we go along, our stakeholders can always get the latest information. We've put up the QR code here for you, so you can scan that with your phone to go directly to the page, or you can also use the link down there. I've also included it here posted it to the chat room, so you can just click on the link there to find the page. And I can also just share that with you quickly for a brief overview. This is our page that we've created, and from here you'll find a lot of the information that everyone has been talking about. What the project is about, where we're going to, some videos to see there as well. This is also the one that Ryan has shared with us this morning. And you'll get some interactive information from our site. But most importantly, what we would like for you to do is register your interest in the project. And for that, we've got this information sheet where we can capture your details. So if you're interested, please join our conversation and get added to our database. You can just fill in all the information here, and it comes directly to me, and we add you to our database. So also, if you have any questions, you can then contact us in this way. But that's about it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Antoinette. Thank you, Ryan.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. I thought it was a really, really interesting discussion. I'm well aware that we have gone way over time, but I'm really encouraged to see that most of the participants have stayed. So thank you all very much for hanging around and being part of the conversation. I don't want to leave before at least answering one question. And a great question has come through this morning. From Elspeth, so thank you very much for that question, and I see Joseph has answered it from the German perspective in the Q&A box, for those of you who can see that. But I was just wondering from the South African perspective, Antoinette, if you perhaps have some thoughts around this, and the question really is, what consideration has been given to lecturer capacity in the dual model? So exposing learners to industry exposes them to new technologies and applications in the workplace in the real time. But what exposure does a lecturer get to the real world of work to enhance their curriculum delivery? So from the German perspective, Joseph has indicated that it's absolutely key, and that lecturers need to be familiar with industry work technologies and processes inside of those companies. And in Germany, they've solved that problem by delivering this model through universities of applied sciences, where most of the professors have worked in industry before. And I was just curious, Antoinette and the rest of the team, what your perspective would be on that with respect to the South African situation.
Thank you, Ryan, for that question, and thank you for the person who's asked the question. Yes, I think it's the same as in the German, you know, in the German world or in environment. Normally, you know, universities do have officers that make contact with the industry. But the lecturers, in this case, I think the lecturers will definitely have very direct contact with the industry. And I think it will also be important for the lecturer, if it is possible, that they even visit the companies where the students are placed. So, I mean, we won't know before we haven't implemented, but I think, you know, looking at what we've done up till now with the workplace-based learning, my sense is that we will definitely encourage the lecturers to get more involved, to learn a lot about the companies, because they have, as I said, they have to prepare the students. And a lot of times, you know, in the past it had happened that students said that they have not learned much about the placement where they are going. So I think in this case, yes, I think the lecturers will definitely be assisted to do that.
Let me add, I confirm that the lecturers must learn something about technology and about the processes in industry. But on the other hand, the industry also have to learn how to work with students, because to supervise students is different just to supervise workers. So we have to make an exchange in experience and in abilities in both directions. So the university teacher must get more knowledge about what companies need and how companies work, and on the other hand, the companies must learn how to integrate students in their environment to generate most benefit from it.
Fantastic, thank you very much for that. Chris, anything to add as a last word from your side?
Yes, thank you very much. I think colleagues have covered, but I think with the current model that we're having, that is already happening. Perhaps we can maybe augment or add, but there are those particular practices where there are curriculum advisors as well, because it's actually the two-way traffic. There are curriculum advisors, people from industry, but there are also secondment scheme of lecturers to industry, as well as sabbatical to industry. I think that's very important that the two are working hand in glove. That is actually both ways, as Joseph is saying. And even in some cases, you'll actually find that some of the projects that are actually industry projects, they're actually being given to universities because you do have those particular labs. Some of them will be labs that are sponsored by companies, and of course, vice versa as well. The only thing that you normally need to navigate is the issue of the disclosures, particularly industries that are actually dealing with serious intellectual property exploitation, that you actually agree on the NDAs. Otherwise, it's actually happening. It's something that can be built on based on this particular model once it's actually implemented.
Thanks very much, Chris, for those final words. And unfortunately, we've now completely run over time, and we're going to have to end. So I think what has come through very strongly for me this morning is the importance of close collaboration and strong relationships between business and academia. And I think that becomes an absolutely critical success factor in this project. So really just want to encourage all businesses that are still on this call to please get involved, engage. You can see from this morning session that we have the full support of academia, and certainly from that side of the equation, they are ready to go. So on that note, I think final words, just to say a massive word of thanks to Professor Christian Flappo, Joseph Kocheman, Medea Milenkovic for joining us as well, Antoinette Smith-Tolkien and Estienne Behrens. All of you, a really fantastic project team. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you on this. And nothing left to say, but thank you very much. And then also to all the attendees who've joined us this morning. We look forward to engaging you further as the project matures and evolves. And on that note, I wish you all well. Have a fantastic day, and we look forward to engaging you further.